Kính chào toàn thể quý khán giả. Mời quý vị đến với chương trình Thanh Thảo Show tuần này. Đây là một chương trình đặc biệt. Thanh Thảo sẽ có cuộc phỏng vấn ông John Forsyte, là CEO và President của Pacific Symphony Orchestra. Hiện nay, Pacific Symphony Orchestra đang trình diễn tại sân khấu Strom Center. Và quý vị có thể vào pacificsymphony.org để tìm hiểu thêm về thông tin về tổ chức này. Và ngày hôm nay Thanh Thảo xin mời quý vị cùng xem buổi nói chuyện của Thanh Thảo với ông John Forsyte. Hello everyone, please welcome to Thanh Thảo Show. I would like to introduce Mr. John Forsyte, the CEO and President of Pacific Symphony, and we'll have a very interesting talk with him today.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Thank you, John. As a return guest, my audience have known a little bit about Pacific Symphony, about you, John Forsyte, CEO and President of the organization, and your music director right now, Carl Sinclair. But as we have known, Pacific Symphony is in the process of looking for a new music director because Mr. Sinclair is retiring. So please talk a little bit about this.
Well, we've been blessed to have an incredible leader in Carl Sinclair for over 3 decades, 33 years. And he has led this organization from a very, small institution, humble institution, to a major professional orchestra that's now, as part of the League of American Orchestras, considered a top-tier symphony orchestra. He happily is not going to retire, so that's the good news. He's going to become a music director laureate as soon as a new music director is identified.
I see.
So as laureate, he will continue to conduct several times a year. And he's still very active and conducting. He's in Japan right now conducting. So he's a very active musician. But I think he believes it's healthy for an institution to have a new artistic voice after so many years. And so this meant that the board of directors had to form a succession process. And part of that is forming a search committee that includes musicians, staff, and board members and community members. And that group has been meeting to develop the criteria of who's the ideal leader for this orchestra in this region, and particularly an American orchestra. What do we represent here in America? And I think the unique aspects of American orchestras is our commitment to community. And particularly the Pacific Symphony has become renowned for its community engagement work. And so any musician that will lead the artistic work of the symphony in partnership with myself and staff members really has to be committed to the community. That includes things like going to schools, performing free concerts in parks and community centers, but also music and wellness initiatives and things that a lot of people probably wouldn't know about. So it's a very exciting time, and we'll see 8 conductors this year throughout the season who will be effectively trying us out. It's kind of a courtship, right?
Yes.
They have to want us, and we want them. We had 2 conductors last spring who were wonderful. So we're already in the process, and you never know when lightning could strike, and that we decide that this is the person. So
love at first sight, you mean?
That's right.
I hope for the Pacific Symphony to find a wonderful music director too.
We're confident.
Yeah, but the thing is, there are people said it's not the goal; it's the road to the goal. Yeah. So, are you enjoying the process?
It is a fascinating process. A great question. I think that a lot of people wouldn't understand that a conductor has a very unique role. It's a combination of someone who is an inspirational coach, someone who's interpreting the score, someone who needs to know a lot about the technical demands of each individual instrument in the orchestra. So it's not just rhythm, it's everything from how the balances work between the different, I call them choral sections, like a brass section, wind section, and string section. They're really almost like 3 choruses, and they have to gel. And so a conductor has a particular perspective on how all of that ensemble comes together, how they create a shape to a phrase, or what is the syllabic emphasis in the music, if you will. So they're very highly trained musicians. And then they're on the other side, as a music director, they have the programming responsibility. They have the community engagement collaboration with our team to design programs that impact the community. So I really think of it as another chief officer. So if I'm chief executive officer, this individual will be chief artistic officer, and we work together.
I see. So also your personality and that person's personality have to match too.
And the musicians. I think what's interesting is great conductors can come and work with our orchestra and have incredible chemistry, and some other orchestra will say, you know, this person didn't work well with us.
I see.
And so I think chemistry and having the input of the musicians is really an important part of the search process. But to me, it's just exciting to see different artists, how they approach making music. And I think for that reason, if somebody subscribes this year to the symphony, they're going to go on a musical journey unlike any other year in the history of the orchestra. So I think it'll be fascinating.
Before we talk about the subscription for the annual membership, let me ask you, Pacific Symphony have just gotten a new pop director, music director.
Right.
Please talk a little bit about him.
Well, we have different series. So we have a classical series. The music director that we're talking about would have oversight of the classical series,
yes,
which is 12 weekends, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. But we also have a popular music series, and it's very diverse. So the person who's principal pops conductor is helping to curate interesting commercial music artists. So we open, for example, with 50 years of Star Wars scores.
Oh, yes.
So you realize John Williams obviously created the original Star Wars scores, but Michael Giacchino wrote some of the Star Wars music as well. So we're going to touch on all of these different eras of Star Wars music. It should be an amazing concert. And Enrico Lopez Yanez is the new principal pops conductor. He has been principal pops conductor of the Nashville Symphony, and so we are now his new organization with which he'll work. And he grew up in Southern California, and he's a very, very gifted musician, conductor, and curator. But some of the artists, like Lyle Lovett is coming, Celtic Woman, which many people have seen on PBS. We're doing an Elton John, music of Elton John concert. We're actually doing a semi-stage Broadway show to close the season. Sweeney Todd, one of the greatest Sondheim programs. It'll be incredible with sets, staging, and the orchestra on stage. So the pop series is 7 weekends and a wonderful project.
And the viewers could purchase the classical and mix with the pop.
Yes,
you know,
we do have packages which allow you to pick from classical or the pop
and some
concerts.
of the pop.
And you know, another series that might be interesting to viewers is the family series. So we have series on Saturday mornings, 5 Saturday mornings starting at Halloween. We do a shortened Nutcracker, and it's really designed for children between 3 and 11, roughly. And then so the parents can bring their children and experience a shortened but very interactive concert. And then there's lobby activities, depending on which show they go to, either before or after. So that's called Family Musical Mornings.
Could you talk a little bit about a Vietnamese American music? Would you call
composer in
residence?
Yeah.
In the over 2 years that I have become a member of the board of directors, I've seen so many changes, and that's one of the major changes.
Yes.
Could you please tell viewers a little about him and his new piece this season?
Yes. Well, Viet Quang is our composer in residence. You, I think, have met him and spoke. He's an amazing musician. He comes out of the symphonic band world. He loves music of bands, and then evolved into writing for orchestra.
That's very hard.
He's really gifted, and it's music I think is very accessible. So even though it sounds new, and maybe it's adventurous to some, it's very pleasing music. But he wrote a piece, and there's a theme to the opening night of the season, which starts on September 21st. And we're really observing heroism. And in fact, we've asked musicians, we've asked some volunteers, who are your musical heroes? And the idea is that Viet Quang's piece is in fact a tribute to his hero, his father.
Wow.
And as his father was very ill and near the end of his life, he was visiting him in his hospital, and he had conversations with him, and he wasn't always responsive, and he would hear the medical equipment, respirators and so forth. So Viet Quang wrote a piece called Vital Signs.
Oh.
And it's an allusion to the sine wave. So this kind of up and down motion of the music. And he wrote it for a very interesting ensemble that will solo with us. Usually solo pieces are for one instrument and orchestra. This is a group of 6 musicians called Eighth Blackbird, which is derived, the name is from a poem. But there's 6 musicians that formed a chamber group that now play sometimes with symphony orchestras. And Viet Quang wrote a piece for the 6 of them with us called Vital Signs. And it's really in honor of his father. On the second half of the concert, Carl's doing a piece called A Hero's Life by Richard Strauss. And this is a piece that we actually performed in Europe in 2006 to great acclaim. When you take German music to Germany, you have to have pretty good musicians.
Right.
And we were so proud of the orchestra. They got great reviews. So Carl's always felt like A Hero's Life would be a great piece to bring back. And in connection with this piece by Viet Quang, the theme is heroism. And I think it's going to be a beautiful program. That Strauss piece is huge orchestra, 100 pieces, 8 French horns. It's like swashbuckling. I'd almost say it's film music before film music existed, because I think today's composers like John Williams were inspired by composers like Strauss back in the 1880s, 90s. So I think people will love this concert.
September 21st, 2023.
21st, 22nd, 23rd.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just repeating what John Forsyte just said, that if you are looking for really great entertainment, really inspiring music, please go on to pacificsymphony.org and purchase your season ticket. Like John said, there are different programs or different packages that you can mix and match.
Exactly.
The opening night would be for the classical series, but Pacific Symphony also have the popular series and others family package, so you can mix and match. If you can't do it, you can call in, and someone will help you to pick your package. And going back to one thing, I would like to clarify. A lot of my friends said, Tony, I saw your program on Việt Face TV. I would like to support Pacific Symphony. And I said, I bought a ticket for so-and-so show. And I said, no, that's not Pacific Symphony. And they said, but it's on the stage of Segerstrom Center Concert Hall. So please explain one more time.
Of course.
That even though we play on the stage of Segerstrom Center, we are not one and the same.
Right. You know, it's very interesting. There are 4 nonprofit organizations that are effectively collaborating by sharing a facility. So the Segerstrom Center is a not-for-profit, and their biggest product line, if you will, is Broadway. So if you go to a Broadway show, you're purchasing a ticket from the Segerstrom Center for the Arts. They're producing that. There's another organization called the Pacific Chorale. They're a professional choral organization. They rent the hall.
I think they won the Grammy last year, right?
Pacific Chorale, and we perform very regularly with them.
Yes.
We're really close with the chorale. There is another organization called the Philharmonic Society of Orange County. If there's an orchestra from outside of the area, say the Philadelphia Orchestra is coming to Orange County, we're not producing that. That's the Philharmonic Society.
I see.
And then Pacific Symphony is Orange County's professional orchestra. So anything that is Pacific Symphony, whether it's a Pops concert or it's our classical series, as long as our musicians are performing, you're supporting the Pacific Symphony. And you know, there are 2 ways to support the orchestra. There's buying tickets, and of course there's philanthropy. And we're very dependent in the United States on philanthropy, which means, you know, you're a generous donor to the symphony, thank you. We have board members and annual fund donors who support the orchestra. And it's a way to support the rehearsal time that is necessary to prepare complex music, to pay for the hall rental, and of course, maybe even more dramatically, to pay for all the free programming that we do throughout the community. So I'd say out of the $23 million budget we have, 60% of it comes from donations. About 35 5% from ticket sales and 5% from an endowment that we have. So, we are a not-for-profit, and we depend on donations as well.
So if the viewers are not in California and cannot come to Orange County to watch or enjoy the music on stage, live, they can donate?
They can make a donation, or even better, they can go to their local orchestra, wherever they are. We're a big orchestral family in America, so if they're in Philadelphia, go support the Philadelphia Orchestra. But what we're really proud of is the fact that today orchestras are creating music and concerts that really embrace the total community. And I'm very proud of Pacific Symphony, our music director, for bringing composers like Viet Quang to our attention.
Yes.
Because it's not just the European composers. As great as they are, there are people from all over the world writing for symphony orchestra today. And it's not just music from 200 years ago, it's music of our time, relevant to this time. So I think a journey through a season is a very special experience, and it never sounds the same.
Yes, I've heard younger audience saying that they expect new music to be popular type.
Right.
So it's very difficult to imagine that new music that's in classical genre.
Yeah.
So when they went to Pacific Symphony, they felt really special and they enjoyed the program a lot.
Yeah, I think it's like an art museum. I think if you go to one of the really big art museums, you know that there's a gallery that is full of treasures from hundreds of years ago, and we can really admire the artistry of the Dutch master or the, whatever country. But you can also go to a contemporary wing, and you'll see art that is provocative in a new way, maybe. I think that's true of music too. They're experimenting with sounds that maybe we haven't heard before, combinations of instruments we haven't heard before, even electronic, or the other night I heard a concert that had a piece for electric guitar and orchestra. It's kind of a new combination. So it's happening in a very exciting way with symphonies, and I think when we talk about new music, we mean music of our time.
Yes. I attended our Pacific Symphony Gala this year, and I learned that you celebrated your 25th year, a quarter of a century, being the CEO, president of Pacific Symphony. Tell us a bit about your feelings as you completed that journey for 25th year.
You know that I started when I was 12. So.
No, well, maybe 13. Yeah. But then, what's your vision for the future too?
Yes. I mean, undoubtedly what's exciting about this time with the search for a new music director, I think, is to have a partner that builds on Carl's great legacy and maybe takes us in directions we haven't explored. So, for example, using digital technology to create more immersive concert experiences. I think today's audiences can experience something in a concert hall that includes multisensory outcomes. I see us really expanding our impact on elementary and middle schools, in particular, to get people started on music education. We cannot expect people to embrace orchestral music or music that is what I'd call long form, 10, 15, all the way to 80 minutes of music, right, in one piece. How do you understand the architecture of music that's that long? So you have to kind of gradually build the vocabulary of people that, music is great if it's 5 minutes, but sometimes it can develop over a long period of time. It's like a great novel. So I think music education is a very important part of the Pacific Symphony's work. And then really just showing up, being a civic partner. I mean, I think there are a lot of communities that need us to be there at times of difficulty or times of celebration. And we can amplify a message really effectively. Mission Viejo, that hosts our annual free summer concert, they usually have some kind of festival. They bring nonprofits out in the community to display their stories. So we feel like we're helping the fabric of a community. And I believe that our music director has to value those same embedded activities. And then there'll be ideas we haven't thought of that somebody new will bring. And more and more we learn from our musicians. They're our great ambassadors. They're out in the community and they educate me a lot about what we can be doing and how we should be doing it. So I think it's one of the most exciting times for us.
And I also would like to ask you one more thing before we go. It's about the partnership that Pacific Symphony may have with the Irvine Meadows, or Irvine Amphitheater.
Yes, great question. So I think many of you may know that there is a former Marine station that called El Toro, and Navy or Marines, forgive me, but it was provided to the city of Irvine as a potentially a major international airport, but the community voted against it being an airport, and it was designated as a great park. So the Great Park of Irvine is now finally really going to be expanded tremendously. Mm-hmm. It's been mostly sporting facilities to this point. There are hundreds of acres that are going to become parkland, and one of those elements will be a cultural facility that we hope will be the summer home of the Pacific Symphony, along with other activities, commercial music and otherwise. And it'll be modeled after some of the great outdoor venues. I think we're studying what is the best fit for sound management, to protect the neighborhoods, for traffic management, but really also the beauty of a park. What should the venue look like? It has to be very sensitively designed for a park as opposed to a commercial setting where SoFi Stadium is. It's very different. So I think this will be a magical moment. We're anticipating that will happen in 3 to 4 years, and in the meantime, we'll look for a home, a temporary home, as we currently are at 5 Point Amphitheater. Yeah. We have one more summer concert on September 9th at 5 Point Amphitheater, so we're looking forward to that.
Again, you can go on to pacificsymphony.org and start purchasing the ticket for the final summer program at the 5 Point Theater, and then wait for a few years to see the new home for Pacific Symphony. But in the meantime, go and subscribe to become an annual subscriber and purchase your packages. It's great to have you watching this show. I will see you next time. Thank you so much, Mr. John Forsyte.
Thank you so much.